Oh my God.
Sure. It just blew me away. Are you going? Everything's going? All right. Recording audio? Yeah. That's our setup to line up our audio and visual. We got really lucky. We had we had more audio problems for the longest time because my co-host is really animated. He turns and he looks and he moves, and so he was moving away. So you would hear him in my mic, and then you'd hear him in this mic, and so we struggled with it. And someone that watches our show, a guy in Washington D.C., sent me an email and said, "Hey, I'm a professional audio engineer, and your sound is terrible. If you'll just send me the raw audio files, I'll start doing all of your sound for you." So for maybe 6 or 8 episodes now, he's doing all of our sound. And it sounds like we're in a studio. It sounds great, and he won't let us pay for it. He's like, no, I just want to contribute. I want it to sound.
You are so bad that
it's so bad. Exactly.
I'm the video.
All right, hey, welcome to Fireside Tats. My name is Jake. I'm the host of this show. This is the official podcast of the Tattoo Improvement Network. Go to tattooimprovement.com or firesidetats.com. and check out all of our episodes. A little secret, both of those websites lead to the exact same place. So go to tattooimprovement.com. I'm here today with Paolo Chiezzi. We're in Atlanta. This is actually the first of our, I don't know, 4 or 5 episodes that we're doing in the next couple of days. We've got a marathon of podcasting coming up, and some painters, some tattooers, kind of a nice even mix, really. And I wanted to bring Paolo in specifically. We met about a year or so ago now at a Casey Ball workshop, and have met each other a few times since then at different workshops at the Portrait Society of America. And Paolo is kind of like me in that he is, kind of like me in some ways. He's not a full-time painter, just like I'm not a full-time painter. He's a very good painter. He's put in a lot of work in a short period of time to get to where he is. So really, I don't even know where we're going to go in this conversation, but I guarantee you should stick around. It'll be interesting. If it's anything like the meal that led up to this, we've already had we should have had a camera running through the entire meal, probably, even if we just regurgitate what we've already said. But so Paolo, tell us just a little bit about your let's just go with painting background. When you started, who you learned from, you're a figure painter, portrait painter, were you always did you start off in anything else, or did you start off in figure painting? Just kind of a brief background.
Yeah. I started painting, or better, to use oil painting in 2008. Actually, I had a previous experience when I was in Italy. The last year of the college was 96, and I wanted to go in an artist studio to learn how to use oil painting at the time. It was something that lasts for about a year. Then I graduated. I started to work, to travel, so I quit my my hobby at the time, and I didn't touch a brush for several years until 2008, when I decided to do a painting of my mom holding my daughter. Was a special thing because they never met. Unfortunately, my mom passed away 1 month before my daughter was born. So I decided to make this hug happen. And I struggled so much to do this painting because, of course, I wanted to do something nice for my father.
But you had to invent this composition. It didn't really exist.
I had to. So I took a photo. I work on Photoshop. And I had my wife posing with, my daughter. So I tried to invent this composition. And the final result, at the time, it looked to me pretty good. Today,
not so good.
It's not so good. But for sure was that experience that pushed me to learn more about painting, to improve my skills. So at the time, after that painting, I decided to find a good teacher here in Atlanta, and I found one of the best actually that you can have here in Atlanta. That is Mark Chatoff. And I started to attend his classes in the late afternoon because I have a full-time job. So from 6 to 9 p.m. and once a week. And that was my really beginning introduction in the oil painting experience, let's say.
And so you still hold the full-time job. You're a mechanical engineer, correct?
Yeah.
So there is some crossover there because we'll learn the more that we talk to you how important design is to you. So you had an eye for design. Or trained in design, so you're building a composition and a painting. Probably do you feel like that your background in engineering and in design helped you transition to to excel in painting as quickly as you did, or is it just are they completely different animals?
No, they are not. I think it helped me a lot to learn some procedure to follow to deal with some issue that you have when you start painting, like what kind of light use and how to deal with colors. So I think the technical drawing gave me a good foundation to start from. That for sure. And then, of course, when I started designing machinery, I was doing at the very beginning without the CAD system. We were doing by hand, so I was drawing a lot. And the technical drawing is a good workout for your hand, for sure. So it helped me a lot. Helped me a lot.
So you started studying. You also, I guess, shortly after that started. Did you venture out and start taking workshops pretty early on? Do you feel like that added a lot, or helped you to? I don't know the term I'm looking for. Do you feel like that made you better faster? Did you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I recommend to all my friends that start painting. When they ask me what I should do, I recommend them to attend workshops because the risk having just one teacher is that you start to emulate your teacher so much that you lose your path, or better, you don't have your own path.
Right.
You simply finish to desire painting like your master or your mentor, is a better definition. And was, for example, Mark Chatoff, he encouraged me to follow other artists, to get familiar with other techniques or procedure. So I was able to choose between a wider range of possibilities and see which one was fitting better for me.
Right.
And I think was a great recommendation. For that reason, I started to look at the different artists here in Georgia, and actually some of them outside Georgia. And I decided to attend a workshop in California with Jeremy Lipkin.
Yeah.
I did a few workshops with Casey Bo and Jeff Hine.
Yeah.
And from every workshop, I
bring something new to
absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's so important, and it is easy to I think to follow someone that you look up to and mimic their work to such an extent that it does you a disservice in your own work. And speaking of Jeff Hine, he talked a little bit about that. He runs that school in Salt Lake City, and he talks about the importance of not taking away his students' natural mark making ability. We actually talked about this in our last episode from a tattoo apprenticeship standpoint. In tattooing, it's very technical, it's very precise, and we often we find that we're telling people to make marks the way that we make marks. You can get that line in the skin if you pull this way or if you do this or that. Well, that may not be their natural way to make that mark. And Jeff Hine made that point talking about working with his students. He tries so hard just to look at the accuracy or the did they get a good representation, and tries so hard not to tell them how to make marks or not to give technical advice, but just say like, well, is that dark enough? Is that relationship, that spatial relationship right? Or is that, he tries to take a more abstract approach, I guess, when teaching his students in an effort to not control their drawing or painting too much.
No, absolutely. I think we can say in this way, now, when you produce a piece of art, you want to deliver a message. So when you deliver a message, you have to learn, first you have to learn how to talk. So you have to learn the language, you have to learn the alphabet. So that is the importance of, doing workshop and learn different techniques and so on. But you need your own, to keep your own calligraphy style. So, but are both things. You need to learn the alphabet so you can communicate with the people.
Right.
And in our case, you need to know how to use brushes and colors, and but without losing your own style. That is your calligraphy when you write, let's say.
Right.
So there are some similarities between.
I completely agree. We talked a little bit over dinner about that step being skipped with a lot of artists over the last 30, 40 or more years, where you talked a little about Picasso or some of these artists that intentionally stepped away from representational art and made decisions that really pushed boundaries, but they really understood the rules that they were breaking and why they were breaking them. And when you look at their representational work and you look at what they did so well, you can see, okay, I should pay attention to this more abstract style that this person has moved towards, because he obviously knows what he's doing. He has a reason for doing it. What's he trying to convey?
Absolutely. Picasso, when he was a young kid, he was able to draw like Michelangelo. There is a portrait of his mother that I saw in Madrid. And he painted, I think he was 11 or 12 years old, and he's amazing. He's a realist portrait of his mother. So he started from what we were saying, to learn the alphabet. Then he was able to speak loud at the end of his career, or with something new, and what we were talking about before, no?
Right. Talk a little bit about what we just touched on, about where you see the this transition. You mentioned some of the avant-garde artists at the end of the 1800s, as opposed to some of the artists at the end of the 1900s. Just go through a little bit. I thought it was an interesting point that you made.
That was a great passion when I was 18 years old. I started to read about this movement at the end of the 19th century in Austria with Gustav Klimt, Egon Schiele, and because of course, at the beginning I loved the painting of Klimt, but then I started to dig a little bit on their movement, and I was able to find the book that they wrote as a manifesto of their movement. That is the title of the book is Ver Sacrum, that in Latin means the Holy Spring. So this group of artists decided that the new century deserved something new. So they needed to find a new way to express their ideas. And in this book I found something that is quite simple, a concept that is quite simple but is strong. That was you have to put beauty in everything you do. So not simply in when you do art, but everything is an opportunity to express yourself. So also when you do the common things during the day. And these remain in my mind. So even when I cook, that is one of my passions, I like to present what I do in an artistic way. So that movement originated in the modern concept of industrial design, and I love the industrial design too. So when I think of that energy, that kind of energy, and I think to the end of the millennium that we lived in person at the end of the 1900s, I think we missed an opportunity. We didn't left anything strong as they did at the time. So I feel that sometimes we are too much tied to the classic painters. That is great. I mean, you have to learn what they did, but then you have to start to express yourself and leave a message for the people that will come in 1,000 years. That when they will look at our artwork, they want to understand our society. And if we simply
if we just repeat what
been done 100 years ago, will be a fake message, that the one we give.
Yeah. Did technology get in our way? What do you think? Were artists preoccupied at the end of the 20th century? What do you have any idea why there were movements at the end of the 19th century that we're still talking about 120 years later, but there was nothing that we can talk about from 15 years ago?
I don't know. When you say technology, you mean the social or?
Yeah, or you mentioned when we were talking earlier about that that there was this avant-garde movement, and they felt like even though it was nothing more than the end of a decade, or that it was still in their minds it was the turn of a century, and they really treated that with a lot of respect, and they wanted to leave their mark on that. And then you mentioned, at the end of the 20th century, which should have been an even bigger deal, because that we were more concerned with the year 2000 crash than we were with
yes, absolutely. Yeah. We didn't know what was going on with Microsoft
right. And why did we
software
care? And why did we care so much about that? Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, Microsoft, it doesn't work even in normal time. So it was not a big deal if it was crashing at the end of the year, but it kept crashing.
Crashes every 6 months. What does it matter?
Yeah, but of course, our society is really focused on technology, that kind of technology, and so. I'm not surprised that the main attention was given to the software issues that we might have at the end of the century, more than to what the artists were going to produce new the following year.
Right, right. And unfortunately, I guess the artists just didn't produce anything of significance at that point. I can't think of any even technology-based movement that was going on at the turn of the century. I'm sure there were plenty that I just don't know that didn't stand.
Maybe they were not strong enough to leave a strong message, let's say.
Going back to the idea of making sure that you're incorporating beauty into whatever your definition of beauty is, and into everything that you do, whether it's your cooking, which we sat and we may pan around and show this kitchen that Paolo had designed. It's spectacular. But we had the opportunity to sit and watch Paolo cook when we first got here before we set up today, and it really is. It really is like a presentation of. You can tell that you're paying attention to each and every aspect of it. When you take that into your painting, are you thinking that way? Do you try to craft each stroke to have a meaning, or do you kind of haphazardly make marks just to build compositions? Are you really deliberate throughout the entire process with that idea in mind?
Yes, I try. I remember when Mark, my teacher, told me a painting has to be beautiful in every stage. So also on the early stage, he has to look good, to be good at the end. Now, when I start my painting, I try to reduce the pressure at the beginning, of course, of the white canvas. Yeah. So I go pretty easy at the beginning. I show you a couple of new pieces I'm doing, and I mean, at the very beginning, I try to focus more on the composition. So I don't spend too much time on the drawing, for example. Yeah. And so some, especially if you paint figures, some features can look in the wrong place at the very beginning. Yeah. Again, I keep in my mind what my teacher told me. So I try to make it right from the very beginning, but if it doesn't happen, I don't go crazy. I try to stay calm and to focus more on the composition at the beginning. That is the thing that really you cannot change.
Once you've established that.
Once you have established. So, and the second thing that I pay a lot of attention are values. Yeah. That was one of the things I got from the workshop with Chiezzi, and that is the school of Richard Smith that teach you to push a lot on that side, on the values. Right. I mean, I think on the book of Richard Smith was written that there are not really wrong colors in a painting. So you can use whatever color you like or you want to use, but if the value is right, it will look right. It will
look believable. Sure.
If the value is wrong, even if it's the right color, it doesn't look good. Right. So I keep this in mind, that I pay a lot of attention to values, to be honest.
Casey, I loved whenever he explained his process, and it was that exact thing, that composition and values came first. He worried, of course, he's good enough that he kind of builds all those things. His value and his color come together at the same time, and they look fantastic right from the start. But not everyone is like that. But he put drawing so far down in his list that basically his idea is that, you know, if your values, your composition, your color, all those things are right, the drawing can be changed towards the end. When there's enough paint on the canvas, you can move paint and shift drawing at the end and make changes and save a painting that maybe didn't have great drawing throughout the process. Yeah,
absolutely. And and I do pretty often, especially when I do big paintings, I redraw several times because sometimes you lose the edges and you need to reestablish the right drawing. So, I mean, that is one of the reasons why I like to paint with oil, because it's forgiving. And the approach, this approach maybe would not work with the water base, with the products, because you have to be more precise from the very beginning with your drawing. So it's a different approach.
Yeah. People have a really, people that do not paint, I hear so often tattoo artists say like, well, I'm intimidated by oil painting. And that just shows to me a complete misunderstanding of the medium, because it is the most forgiving medium that you can work in. Basically, it's malleable for so long. You can move it around. You can change it with the right mediums. You can change it for weeks and weeks on end. You know, and there's nothing more forgiving than oil painting, and people have a terrible misconception of that when they haven't used it, of its permanence. I think they confuse it with like oil paint, you know, for your house or something like that. It's like, yes. Oh, it doesn't come off of anything. It's terrible. It's
absolutely. I use it for when I did the bathroom of the kids. It's terrible. It's terrible. It's a different oil. It's a different oil.
Different oil, for sure. Altogether. But yeah, talking about the beauty and trying to keep it in mind throughout, I thought that Jeff Hine, when we did his workshop, I don't know if you remember, talking about a painting should look, I think he said 3, 3, and 3. Like a painting should look great from 30 feet, 3 feet, and 3 inches.
3 inches.
And the 3 inches I thought was really important, because basically what he was saying was, think about, if that mark doesn't make sense where it's going, then don't waste your time making the mark. You should be thinking about each of those marks. Absolutely.
I remember very well, because when he came to my painting, he told me, your painting look good from 30 feet. It still look good from 3 feet, but it doesn't look so good from 3 inches. So and he was completely right, because it's what I was thinking when I was looking at his painting, and when I went very close, I saw these brush strokes that he gave during the demo. And you could see the whole story there.
Yeah.
And all these different colors he mixed. And when you were going far from the painting, they were melting together to do this incredible effect. And I mean, we need to struggle to
make that happen.
To make that happen, and it's the same. When I went to see the demo of Steven Assel, that is one of the artists that I think that Jeff Hine admire more.
Yeah,
and I can understand why, because he does an incredible job with the brush stroke and so on. It was a big show when I saw him painting from life.
He painted here in town?
He was at the Kennesaw University.
Oh, okay.
A demo he gave there, and I really enjoyed that.
Where do you know where he is from, where he lives?
New York.
Okay.
Yeah, he's New York.
Yeah, you know, I noticed that about Jeff's work as well, and I really appreciated being able to see Casey and Jeff just several months apart, because their approach is so different. Well, their finished products are so different, but it when you see, and it kind of goes back to the idea of studying under one mentor. You see someone do something and it looks so effortless, and it turns out so beautifully, and you say, wow, that's the way I should do that. And then you watch someone that has a completely different approach, a completely different method of mark making, a completely different result. You can never confuse the two painters, Jeff Hine and Casey Baugh, but equally beautiful all the way through, you know, the process. And to me, it's such a it's a freeing kind of thought to go like, oh, that's right, there is no right way to do this. You have to see people do it, and you have to find a way to make that happen. But watching them go through that process and seeing what their paintings look like throughout the entire process really helps you to be confident in your own process, I think.
Absolutely true. If I might add something, is the kind of recommendation is to when you begin painting, it would be better to stay with the same teacher for a longer period of time at the beginning.
Sure.
To get familiar with the different techniques that this mentor is using before you start to go crazy with too many workshops. If you start from the beginning to jump from one artist to the other, you can see a lot of things, but it can be a little bit confusing.
Yeah, kind of overwhelming.
Overwhelming,
Yeah.
yes. Because every time you see something different, you fell in love with that. You try to reproduce at home, but you have not enough time, so you fail normally. And then you go to the next workshop. So maybe after 1 year, you did 8 workshops, and you didn't get anything from any of them because you were overwhelmed by that experience. So it's better to stay at the beginning with to choose one teacher, stay with him a little bit longer, and then you start to explore new territories.
Right. At least get the foundation of your alphabet down with a single teacher. Let's change subjects just a little bit for a minute. You have 3 kids, all of which speak 3 languages, and we talked some about trying to instill some of these ideas in the kids. And the reason I bring up the languages is that that was obviously something you felt like was important, and like a focused effort that you made to speak 3 languages around the house on a regular basis, and then we also talked about. When you designed your kitchen, there are these really nice LED lights, and you mentioned to your daughter, like a lot of people would say, there's no reason to put lights on top of your kitchen cabinets. That's not important. It's a waste of time and of money. But it's you trying to instill in your kids the sense of beauty and deciding what that is for themselves, and not listening necessarily to outside input on what they should or shouldn't do aesthetically or in any other kind of aspect of their life. That's a big deal to you to kind of instill in your family, huh?
Yes, absolutely. And I remember when I was at the college, and we started this new class of machine design. And the first lesson, the teacher told us one sentence that is still in my mind. He said, if the machine you design is beautiful, it will work well. So, and that was coming from a technical guy, so a rational, not emotional guy. And so I found it was very interesting. It sounds like a joke, but it was pretty serious when he said that sentence. And I'm trying to do the same with my kids, to teach them that you can do things in many different ways, but if you do in a beautiful way, it will work better. Let's say that. And again, when I say beautiful, or I use the word beauty, that is a completely subjective term. So everybody has to find his own definition, and but be consistent in pushing on that direction.
Yeah, I would imagine that that's something that you're instilling in them that very few of their friends and classmates understand. And I guess that my guess is that comes more from Italy, from just coming in from a different culture and trying to instill your culture in your children. It's something that's kind of lost here in the States, don't you think?
I feel sometimes that here there is a lot of interest on the classic design, or on the standard type of kitchens or furniture, and I feel that in my country, in Italy, and I think that is recognized, we push a lot on innovative design. so for that reason, I like to keep this connection, and I think the language is very important. It's basic to keep the connection with your country. So for that reason, I teach Italian to my kids, because I want them to be able to merge the good things coming from the three different cultures. So the Italian, the Spanish, and the American one. Again, talking about design, the Italian culture, I think is great. So for that reason, instead of teaching them with sentences or long speeches, we were talking that
about
they
attention span. Yeah,
exactly.
It requires you to be pretty clever in the way that you bring things up.
Yes, so I think a great way is to give them some example that they can touch. So this kitchen is something they can touch, appreciate, or they might not like, but they recognize that I was trying to do something different to push a little bit. And to raise the bar, and from an aesthetical point of view, it's not common to see this type of kitchen here. Right.
And whether they like it aesthetically or not, just seeing the time, the effort that you put into it, and the passion that you had for it, at the very least, conveys the value.
Exactly, it's the method at the end that counts. How you approach your projects and how much energy you put on those projects, and again, try to push on the aesthetic side, and to make it beautiful. That will be a better things that you will really enjoy.
And push the idea that it's worth the time and energy that it takes. I think sometimes we give the impression, or we are so rushed as parents, as that we glaze over so many things that we do in our day-to-day lives, that our kids see that, and they kind of can easily end up in the same position where they don't take the time to appreciate beauty in a new kitchen design or whatever. And that's really the time probably that they could most easily absorb that information, because they are absorbing things around them all the time, and it's your responsibility to put the right things in front of them, or the important things in front of them, and bring them to their attention.
And in front of the television, I would say, to cover the television, because sometimes they absorb too many bad things, wrong messages from there. And I realized that you are not really in control sometimes, because you are so busy, you do your things, and they are in front of the TV, and they got tons of messages. So you have to fight against this, and this is the way I do.
Well, I think, and we're talking to a group of artists here on this show, and we're in a unique position, because a lot of times the things that we're preoccupied with are perfect teaching tools for our kids. So, for example, I'm drawing for a large tattoo that has to be finished for a design tomorrow, and my son comes in the room. Rather than putting an iPad in his lap and keeping him out of my way, inviting him to help me make a decision or two. Am I going to use the decision that he makes? If he says that should be green or that should be blue, not likely, but at least it allows him to have some input. He sees what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and you can openly, share the problems that you're having with it. This head on this turtle doesn't look right to me. What do you think about it? He's 5 years old. He can't fix my turtle's head, but whatever. Did that sound bad? I don't know. But you know what I mean. I mean, as artists, I think we have a really unique opportunity to show our kids things that other parents can't as easily show them, ways to incorporate, to make sure that you're paying attention, to make something beautiful, to whatever it is.
For sure you will get the best critique from
that's for sure.
your children, because they don't lie. So they are not politically correct.
No.
So if something is wrong, they will tell you.
Right.
If something is right, they will tell you, and it will be great.
Yeah. Tell along those lines. Tell the story of the fallen soldiers.
Yes, we have a project here in Atlanta to paint free portraits for the families of the fallen soldiers. And they invite me to paint a portrait of a fallen soldier, a hero. And so I get in touch with the family, and finally I got the material to start my portrait. Unfortunately, I got just 2 photographs, and the resolution was very poor, a very small photograph. So I struggled a lot to make it work, to make a composition that was working. And finally, I had an idea because I got a photograph was of the guy from the high school, and the other was with the uniform. But that was crop photos, very small. You could barely see his face. So what I decided to do, I decided to have the high school photograph as the foreground. I had this guy sit on a bench, and then I used the other to show a soldier in the background, in the very background. So when I was doing this on Photoshop, my daughter walked in the room, and she said, his mom will love it. And it was such a simple message. It was so clear that encouraged me to go in that direction without any more hesitation.
Yeah.
So again, they don't lie. So I was sure, and they understand much better than we do.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah, I think so. They're not as clouded sometimes.
Yeah.
I think it's something that's so easily overlooked because so many of us have kids, and one thing is, especially from a tattoo artist standpoint, is most tattoo shops are open at night, and most kids go to school during the day. So it's very common for artists to rarely see their kids. And I know I talk to a lot of tattooers that have this problem. They think, God, I've got to find another line of work or move to a different schedule because I'm at home asleep when my kid goes to school, and as soon as they get out of school, I have to go and tattoo all night, and then I have all this homework doing these drawings, and it's and that's an easily wasted opportunity. When you do have times to spend with your kids, but you're stuck drawing. Bring those kids in the studio. My son, he really doesn't care a lot about drawing or painting, but I still bought an easel, a little Fisher Price easel, and set it in my studio. And he has some, Crayola acrylic paints. He makes a complete mess every day, and it takes 20 minutes to clean up after him. But it's well worth it because we sit. Sometimes we may not talk for 20 minutes. I'm working on a painting. He's working on a painting, and then I turn around and his painting is mostly in this area, like in his face. And then every once in a while he'll walk over and say, "What are you working on?" And I'll say, "Oh, I'm terrible at painting hands. I'm just trying to make this hand work." And and it's such a great you leave the studio that day and you lay down to go to bed that night and you go, "Oh wow, that was really a good day." We just he doesn't really care about being an artist, but he enjoys it enough to sit in the studio with me and make marks and watch what I'm doing. And
and I'm sure that you are not the right person to tell him don't put paint on your skin.
Yeah, probably not. No.
Right?
No, yeah, not. It's Crayola paint. I hope Crayola's not making toxic paint. Who knows though? You're right. Oh, and where are we on time? I'm sure we've been going 45 now. All right. Well, we'll wrap it up then. We hate to make people sit in front of their TV. As we're telling them not to sit in front of the computer, we're holding them in front of the computer for 45 minutes watching our show. Man, thanks for coming on. I really enjoyed it. We should do it again sometime. We're going to, throughout this process, throughout this conversation, we've probably been showing Paolo's work. We'll also link to his work in the show notes. And I'd love to do it again. Our next episode with Paolo will be all on pasta. It'll be all about cooking.
Actually, we decide the next time we do the Spanish one
Oh, okay.
Okay, the Spanish interview.
Yeah.
So we will start with the paella sangria.
Ah.
We will have some flamenco after the paella, and we will have the interview in Spanish.
Oh, fantastic!
Yeah, that is.
that sounds good. That's gonna go over really well.
You told me that you are getting
yeah.
some classes.
I'm taking Spanish classes. So you know.
Hablas español? Sí.
No.
No. Okay.
No. The photos. Speaking of the flamenco, the photos of the flamenco dancer that we showed throughout this are actually Paolo's wife, and so maybe we'll try to get her into dance some flamenco. And the flamenco. How do I flamenco or
Flamenco.
Flamenco.
Yeah.
I can see it written, but I never know pronunciation that well. So we'll get her to do a little flamenco on the podcast next time. It may take a little wine, but we'll see.
Will
make it happen.
We will make it happen.
Thanks, man. Thank you, guys.
Thank
Have a good
you.
night.